All right, guys. Again, if you haven't already joined, patreon.com/jvincent. I upload exercises, demonstrations regularly using high-intensity training protocols. So that way you can kind of construct your own workout and make it the most efficient, safest, and effective for you. So go ahead and join patreon.com/jvincent. You can also message me and contact me there directly, and I will look at your workout, look at your diet, and help you dial everything in. If you want more personal coaching, if you want to speak to me directly through a phone or a Skype or a FaceTime coaching session, email me. At the email below, biofitny@gmail.com. We'll have an hour or a 60 to 90 minute phone or Skype session. Look at your training history, diet history, goals, and make the necessary adjustments. And I will write you a program based on what we find. So now that that is out of the way, the topic of today, the short topic, before I take your questions, is the fact that a calorie surplus is not necessary to build muscle. There is an exclusive video on patreon.com/jvincent where I discuss the science behind why a calorie deficit is not necessary to build muscle, and it is a myth. So if you want to watch that video, go ahead and join. But I'm going to go ahead and discuss the basics behind that. So first, think about how little sense it makes to only be able to build muscle in an energy abundance. Now, a lot of people don't really think about this, but you need to realize that our physiology, along with the physiology of every other animal on the planet, evolved and developed in an environment of a starvation-like environment, a food-scarce environment. Starvation for the human genome, along with almost every other animal in the animal kingdom, face starvation frequently. So we needed to evolve in order to survive in starvation conditions and survive in an environment of food scarcity. There were very few instances throughout our evolution where we would have a food abundance. Only within the past, maybe since the 1950s, shortly after World War II, have we been in an environment of food abundance. Even prior to World War II, starvation was a real problem for Western society. Starvation is still a real problem for about 1/3 of the world population, maybe even half. So our evolution depended on our ability to survive in a food scarce environment. Now, the purpose of adding additional muscle tissue is to add additional contractile capability or strength. The only reason we would add or improve our muscle's ability to overcome force or demands placed on it by improved strength to survive. So if building additional strength, and along with it, of course, muscle tissue, is an adaptive response to improve our likelihood of survival, then we're obviously going to need to do this in a food scarce environment since we evolved in a food scarce environment. So evolutionarily, it makes absolutely no sense that we would develop a physiology that only allowed us to produce this adaptive response that was necessary for survival, more muscle tissue and strength, in a food scarce environment. We would not have survived. Because think about it this way. The only two times an animal, or even our human genome, would encounter such deep levels of muscular stress and fatigue are in two situations. One, trying to prevent ourselves from becoming something else's food, fighting it off, sprinting away, escaping, etc. Or trying to hunt and catch and get something to make it food. These are the only two situations where the human physiology would encounter such deep level of muscle fatigue. Other than that, the human physiology or the human species, along with many other animals, is relatively sedentary. We try to conserve as much energy as possible. You never see an animal jogging for fun, okay? In those two situations, if we were not successful in trying to catch something and make it food or prevent ourselves from becoming food, these are two very important survival scenarios. For instance, if the cheetah, or even us, we were hunter and gatherers, we were hunters. If we were chasing down the antelope and we exerted all this energy and we just missed it, evolutionarily, we would need to adapt and respond and improve from that situation in case the next opportunity came. So think about it. We expended all that energy. We did not catch the food. We are still in a negative energy balance. And if we don't make that adaptation, we are lowering our chance of catching the antelope in the future and possibly dying. So we evolved to be able to make this adaptation in a food scarce environment or in a negative energy balance, because most of the time while we were hunting and trying to make something food, we were in a negative energy balance. It wouldn't make much sense to only be able to make that adaptation after we were successful hunting. This has been proven. If the rat's muscle, they would sever the soleus in the rat's leg so that the gastrocnemius had to bear more load when it ran it on the wheel. So they found that if the muscle is adequately loaded, stressed, and fatigued, and therefore stimulated, the gastrocnemius of the rat would still hypertrophy, grow, in starvation conditions. So what they found was energy balance does not dictate whether or not your muscles grow, meaning you do not need to be in a positive energy balance or a energy surplus or calorie surplus to build muscle. If properly fatigued and stimulated, the rat models would still build muscle even in a negative energy balance and even in a starvation-like condition. They found the mechanical stress and the hormonal stimulation took precedence over even adequate protein, adequate energy availability, and adequate calories. So how does this work? We know that the law of thermodynamics, you cannot create energy, you can only change its form. You cannot create or destroy energy. So where's the energy come from? It's a good question. So if you're in a food scarce environment and you don't have enough energy coming in, but it requires energy to build muscle tissue, but you're not putting it in, where is it coming from? Well, we know it's not coming out of thin effing air, right? So what they found was your body will build muscle at the expense of other tissues. meaning it will literally break down other tissues to build muscle if the demand on the body or the muscle is high enough, if you stress the muscle high enough. Because if you stress the muscle that significantly, the body interprets adding muscle tissue and strength as absolutely necessary for its survival. Your body more or less thinks it almost got killed. So it will literally break down fat tissue and use the energy from that fat tissue to supply the muscle growth process. This is great news because now we know you can build muscle and lose fat at the exact same time. But the way most idiots train, hour to 2 hour workouts, not very intense, tons of movement, tons of energy expenditure, just bullshit. It would not work for them because they are not stressing the muscle hard enough and they're training too often. Most of the times, the way most people train, 6 days a week, hour and a half, they're not actually training. They're just using their body. They're moving their body around with a little bit of added resistance. But that much activity, if done over a long enough period of time, and especially in a negative energy balance, will result in muscle atrophy. So this wouldn't work the way most people train improperly, because the way they train produces an environment conducive to muscle atrophy anyway. Too much frequency, too many exercises, not enough intensity. So add in a negative energy balance to that, they're going to lose muscle. That's why they notice they lose muscle. But if you train your body properly, extremely intensely, short duration workouts, relatively infrequent, you will build muscle tissue at the expense of fat tissue, meaning you will break down the fat tissue to provide the energy to build the muscle tissue in a negative energy balance or calorie restriction. A lot of people may have tried this and believe it's not working. And the reason is you cannot build muscle and lose fat at a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning you cannot build a pound of muscle and lose a pound of fat at the same rate. Muscle hypertrophy and muscle growth is several times slower than fat loss. So what people notice when they eat a calorie restricted diet and resistance train, and the reason they think they can't build muscle this way is because they continue to lose weight. Of course you're going to lose weight because you will be burning fat more quickly than you will be building muscle. So a lot of people try this and they think it's not successful and they think it's not working. It's because they think that they're going to remain at 200 pounds and add muscle and lose fat at the exact same rate. That is impossible, even with drugs. So the right body composition approach, the right approach to improving your body composition is going to be eat a calorie restricted diet and resistance train really intensely and relatively infrequently. And what will happen is your weight will slowly go down over time. You will be building muscle. But if you are a normal human being, the muscle growth will be quite slow. And that is why you will be losing weight. You cannot expect yourself to maintain the same body weight or gain while losing fat and building muscle at the same time, because you are average and you are not on drugs. If you were not average and you were on drugs, you wouldn't be watching this right now. So you have to have realistic expectations. If you're 6 feet tall, 210 pounds, and 25 to 30% body fat, and you want to improve your body composition, you're going to have to reduce your weight. That does not mean that by losing weight, you will be losing muscle. You will at least be maintaining your muscle, but your weight has to go down. So if you're 6 feet tall, 210 pounds and 28% body fat, a good body composition for you is going to look like about 175 to 180 pounds and 10% body fat. You have to lose weight. And a lot of people have trouble understanding this too, because they start resistance training and they think that what they're doing isn't working because their muscles aren't growing as fast as they believe they should, or as fast as they want them to or expect them to. We need to realize this is not up to you. Just because your muscles are not growing fast does not mean you're not doing anything wrong. What that means is you have average genetics and your muscles are growing at a realistic rate. The problem is you have been brainwashed to think that you can gain 10 pounds of muscle in a month. You can't. Most of you can't. Some of you can. Some people do. Most people can't. So you need to realize if you've been training for 2, 3, 4 months and you're not getting very big, it is because you are normal. You're not supposed to get very big. So realistic expectations, okay? First of all, another thing you need to really concentrate on if you're going to be in a calorie deficit, first of all, if you have too much fat on your body, there's one thing you need to do, that is reduce your calories and resistance train. You're not going to improve your body composition without reducing your calories. There's no amount of cardio. There's no type of fat burner. There's no keto, paleo, whatever bullshit diet that you're going to incorporate if you are over fat that is going to improve your body composition. You have to, and you have no choice. You have to reduce your calories. There's no way around it. And if that is too difficult for you, then kiss your goals goodbye. You have to do that. Now, while you reduce your calories, you need to maintain adequate protein. How much is adequate? Research has found about 1 gram per pound of target body weight is adequate. So if you are 200 pounds, 20% body fat, you want to get to 10% body fat, you're going to want to be at about 180 pounds. About 160 to 180 grams of protein a day is adequate. Keep in mind, eating more than this is not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people think that there's such thing as too much protein. Well, what the research has also found is that diets higher in protein tend to put on fat less easily. It appears that it is harder for the body to convert protein substrate into stored fat tissue. So you can't go wrong with eating high protein. Restrict your calories, adequate protein, resistance train. Now, a calorie surplus can be useful to build muscle. I said a calorie surplus is not necessary to build muscle, but in some cases, it can provide an optimal environment for it. For most people, a calorie surplus is just going to result in extra fat that you're going to, so it's going to result in mostly extra fat and some extra muscle. And then when you go to cut that fat in the future, you're going to lose whatever muscle you built in your deficit anyway. That's why it's better to do it slowly. But a calorie deficit or a calorie surplus can be useful for people who already have a lean body composition. So if you cut your calories down enough to where you get about 10% body fat or less, then you can slowly add calories over time to create an optimal environment for muscle growth. But how much more muscle are you going to grow with a calorie surplus versus not? Probably not much that's noticeable. But if you incorporate a calorie surplus and you are above 10% body fat, you're doing it completely wrong. Do not incorporate a calorie surplus unless you are 10% body fat or less. Okay. So any questions about all that? The calorie surplus is a myth, and it's something something that has been pushed by professional bodybuilders over however many years. And the reason it works for professional bodybuilders is, first of all, their genetic ability to build muscle is 1,000 times what yours is while they're natural. Then you add in huge, and I'm talking huge amounts of anabolic steroids. They create the environment with those two characteristics. They create the environment that can use those extra calories because of the ridiculously upregulated protein synthesis. They can use those extra calories to build muscle. You, with average genetics, drug-free, cannot. You will result in fat. Sure, Dorian Yates, actually, he probably didn't even do a crazy calorie surplus. He knew better. Someone like, I don't know, Phil Heath, cool, he might eat 7,000 calories a day. He's also a freak, and he's also on 3 grams of testosterone a week. Okay? And he'll be dead soon anyway. So keep that in mind. The people you're seeking advice from have ridiculous genetics, and they're significantly drug enhanced. What they do does not apply to you. And a calorie surplus for building muscle is one of those things, along with their ridiculous marathon workouts, whatever bullshit. All right, so I'm going to take some questions here. If you haven't joined the Patreon yet, patreon.com/jvincent. I put up a video about this topic the other day. I'm also submitting pretty much daily demonstrations of effective exercises that you can do using high-intensity training principles that are safe, time efficient, and effective. So what I decided to do is just film a bunch of exercises that I think are good, and then you can just put together your own workouts. And also I will take requests to demonstrate some of them within reason. If it's an exercise I've never done, I'm not going to have enough skill to even demonstrate it properly, like a stiff-legged deadlift. I haven't done that in the Patreon because I don't like that exercise and I have zero practice doing it. So you're not going to want to watch me do it because I'm going to do it like shit. Okay. So within reason, don't ask me how to do a high intensity Turkish get up, or something stupid like that. But within reason, I will show you how to do them. All right. Some questions. Here we go. So patreon.com/jvincent. If you want private email or phone coaching and a custom workout, email that email below. Here's a question. Do some individuals, based on their genetics, need to gain weight in order for them to gain muscle? What do you mean gain weight? Do they see? Here's the thing. Misunderstanding. You're basically asking, do they need to gain fat to gain muscle? Because if you gain muscle, you will gain weight. You will gain muscle weight. No, there is no instance. I don't give a shit what your genetics are where you need to add fat to add muscle. That's ridiculous. So no, there's no genetics for that. All right, we'll put this up. Has a majority of your muscle physique been built via multi-set like normal people do? Keep in mind, just because something is common does not mean it's normal or single set to failure. So obviously you're new and you have not watched any other videos, but if you had watched any other videos, you would realize my story is the reason I'm here now is because I made the significant changes in my physique with training single set to failure. That's why I teach it. So go back and watch some other videos and I'll tell you my story and you can hear the story, but I'm not saying it again. But yeah, the majority of the muscle on my physique. See, that's a dumb question. What does that even mean? I mean, I overcame the plateau, and the last live stream I did, I showed the before and after picture when I started doing more intense single set training. Obviously, the majority of the muscle of my physique has been built just training because I started this at 23 years old. But I made the most significant improvements when I switched to training more intensely using single sets. That's just a really poorly worded question. You got to go watch more videos. It's just, you just don't understand what you're asking. What's the spinning my wheels? Work frequency. All right. To which percent body fat can you lose fat and build muscle? It doesn't matter which percent body fat you are. You can lose fat and build muscle no matter what. Like when you are 6%, I don't think you can add muscle in a deficit, right? I don't know. It would depend. 6% is super, super low. You probably, at 6%, you probably could, but that'd be pushing it. 6% is super, super low. That's like competitive bodybuilding level. When you are 6% body fat, your goal is to just maintain as much muscle as you can. No, you're not going to build much muscle in the deficit at 6%. You could probably lose fat and build muscle all the way into the single digits of body fat percentage. I've been resistance training consistently for a year, 4 days a week, and I'm not seeing any gains. I eat clean, take 40 grams of protein daily, and it's pissing me off. Okay, well, first of all, how old are you? What do your genetics look like? How hard are you training? Are you measuring your progress? Are you recording the weight you're using, the repetitions? Are you training to failure? Like it's too broad. I can't say why you're not seeing any gains. It's mostly because most most people are not seeing gains is because they're not training enough, training hard enough. They think they're training hard, but they're not. They're not eating an adequate diet, or your genetics are just not going to allow you to gain as much muscle as you want. The best analogy, I use this analogy all the time. Take somebody who's from Northern Europe. They have pale skin. Say they want to get as tan as a Brazilian. And they say, I can't get as tan as a Brazilian, and I've been going in the tanning booth for 10 minutes every day. I use every oil. I hydrate my skin, blah, 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 and I'm still not getting as tan as a Brazilian. Well, no shit, because your physiology will not allow you to get as tan as a Brazilian. It's similar to your case. Your physiology may not allow you to get as muscular as you want to be, no matter how often you train, how hard you train, how much protein you eat. Just like the pale skinned Northern European person, doesn't matter which tanning bed they use, how frequently they tan, how long they tan, which tanning oils they use. They're never going to get the skin tone as a Brazilian. Just like you might be able to dial in all this and you won't gain as much muscle as you think you should. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's reality. Genetics play a huge role in how much muscle you can build. Huge. Yeah, this one I answered a little earlier in the stream. Your body gets the energy at the expense of other tissues. It will break down other tissues, mostly fat tissue, to provide the energy needs for muscle growth. Will steroids get me bigger muscles faster? Well, yeah, that's the point, because steroids will upregulate protein synthesis and all the other hormones associated with muscle growth, but you still need to have good genetics in order for them to work. You can't have shit genetics and use steroids and expect to get bigger. You won't. Muscle fiber density, all these other things. All right. Are you in a maintenance phase or a deficit? What are your thoughts on eating maintenance? All right. You never want to. So, and here's the problem. I know a lot about this subject. I am an expert, but you do not want to follow what someone else is doing just on the way they look. Don't ask people what they're doing because you like the way they look, because genetics play a huge role. What they do likely is not going to work for you. It works for them and their physiology. So it doesn't matter what I do. What I do is absolutely irrelevant to your approach, besides training intensely. Thoughts on eating maintenance for building muscle? Like I said, the whole purpose of this topic today is you can build muscle in a calorie deficit. So you obviously can build muscle eating maintenance calories. But if you are not very lean first, I don't suggest you eat in maintenance calories. You think Brian DeCosta is natural? I don't know who that is. How much fruit and vegetables would you recommend? Just every meal. All right. Forget about fruit, guys. The whole fruit thing, like, there's nothing magical about fruit. It's got vitamins and stuff like that in it, but it's still sugar, okay? Vegetables, on the other hand, good. Eat vegetables with every meal. Your diet does not need fruit at all whatsoever. All the same micronutrients found in vegetables are also found in fruit, and the vegetables don't have as concentrated of a sugar glucose content. Vegetables, every meal if possible. How much body fat do you recommend for men for an optimal physique? Well, what do you mean by optimal? For health, 10 to 12% body fat. For looks, whatever you prefer. Some people might prefer 6% body fat, 7% body fat. Some people might prefer 14. There's a difference. For health, anywhere from, 9 to 12% body fat is optimal for health. For aesthetics, you're going to want to be 10% or below for your body to look the best. Keep the questions coming. I'm going to get some water. Hold on one second. Keep the questions coming. I will get to them. All right. 17 years old and want to build as much muscle as possible and still maybe grow taller. Surplus needs to grow in height. Well, you're at 17, you're probably as tall as you're ever going to be. Some people grow into their 20s, but, maybe another quarter of an inch or so. Is it calorie surplus needed to grow in height? No. Will it help? That's mostly got to do with growth hormone. And I don't know. I can't answer that one. I'm not even going to try. Do you think it's possible to prepare a boy to competition using only HIIT? What competition? Be more specific and I'll answer that. Is it possible to improve your ligaments and joints themselves, or is it just muscles that will get stronger? Yes, ligaments and joints get stronger when your muscles get stronger. Biologically, it wouldn't make much sense to make the muscle stronger if it's going to pull on the bones and the connective tissues. So why would you make a biceps muscle stronger without making the biceps tendon stronger that it has to actually pull on? So science has found that ligaments, tendons, bones, they all get stronger when your muscles get stronger. And this has to do with the crosstalk using myokines between the tissues. So an upregulation of myokines from the muscle when you fatigue it deep enough will upregulate the growth process of other tissues, including bone, ligaments, tendons, and the tissues in your joints. So yes, training your muscles get your joints stronger. Wouldn't building muscle at the expense of other tissues be detrimental to your internal health, such as your internal organs? Not if the other tissue is fat. So if you're placing a high demand on your muscle tissue, it will be using fat primarily as the other tissue to break down to provide for the growth process. That's the purpose of fat. The purpose of fat is extra energy in case there's not enough energy input. That's what fat's for. It's not going to break down your organs. Why would it do that? Because if your organs fail, you die. That's what fat is for. Fat is for extra energy for processes. Obviously, organs are going to take precedence over muscle tissue. Would you recommend any protein powder in specific, or are they all the same? As long as you're not getting it from like Walmart, they're all the same. Do genetics play a role in how much body fat percentage you can lose or gain? Yes, a lot. So you are born with a certain number of fat cells. Put that in water. You're born with a certain number of fat cells. You cannot add, well, actually, they found you can add them through hyperplasia, but you cannot remove fat cells other than through surgery. So people who can get very, very lean probably have in the ballpark of 10 billion to 15 billion fat cells that they're born with. The morbidly obese have anywhere as much as 300 billion fat cells. That's why they gain fat so easily. And that is why very thin people can seemingly not add fat no matter what the hell they do. You're going to have probably in the ballpark, you're going to probably have to have less than 100 million fat cells, probably even less than 50 million fat cells, billion fat cells in your body in order to obtain a ripped physique. If you are one of these unfortunate individuals who are born with a couple 100 billion fat cells, your chance of getting ripped, slim to none. What does Bulldog Mindset think of HIIT? I saw his video about lots of volume. Just wondering. We trained a couple times and he liked it. It's just, the thing is, he's also got very good genetics. So anything's going to work for him. He may prefer a higher volume, but the few times we train together, I think he's incorporating some HIIT principles into his current workout. But you got to remember, John's always been a pretty big dude. So he's going to respond to what he responds to, which is pretty much anything. So there's no real need for him to change up his workout. He has found that it's more efficient, but he do what he wants. He's got a lot of muscle, so why would he change anything? He would want to change it if he wanted more time, but he's retired. He doesn't need time. Let's end it. Lost most of my gains during COVID since gyms were closed. How long does it usually take to get them back? A couple months at the most. Again, depends. Depends how dialed in, how consistent you're training in, how good your recovery is, how good your sleep is, and how good your diet is. Well, probably a couple months. Optimum Nutrition. Optimum Nutrition is a good brand. I wasn't aware that they sold that at Walmart. You just don't want one of those off weird brands. But if it's Optimum Nutrition, Muscle Tech, Muscle Farm, BPI, what's the other one? The red one. Like that, Syntha 6. even like Ronnie Coleman's line. That's all the same stuff. Just don't get the freaking dog. Just don't get the crappy off-brand whatever stuff. Yeah, I get this question all the time. Is there any difference between male and female HIIT training? My friend is afraid she will look like some huge bodybuilder. How to convince her? Women do not have the genetic requirements to build a lot of muscle. They don't have broad shoulders. They don't have broad, thick bones. They literally don't have the physiology to hold large amounts of muscle, no matter what they do. Think about it. Men have more testosterone, more growth, more hormone, longer muscle bellies, broader shoulders, thicker bones, and men are trying everything possible, from protein powders to workout programs to keto diet to blah, 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 to just add a little bit of muscle. Meanwhile, a female is afraid she's going to look like a bodybuilder accidentally? Not much logic there, is there? She ain't going to look like a bodybuilder. If most men are fighting tooth and effing nail to try to look like a bodybuilder, and they have the hormonal and physiological prerequisites far better than a female, what the hell makes a female so lucky to look like a bodybuilder by accident? That's what you convince her. And the only females that do look like bodybuilders are on ridiculous amounts of drugs, mostly testosterone. What happens if you don't train for a month? What happens in the human body as the muscles, especially when you have as you? Well, muscles use it or lose it. So if you don't place a demand on them to stay there, they will go away. Just like if you get a suntan, your skin will go back to normal if it's not consistently exposed to the sun a minimum amount. If you didn't train at all for a month, you might lose a little bit of muscle, but not much. In my case, I'm not sure. Might lose a couple pounds, but I wouldn't lose much. But again, I've never stopped training. So, is steel products good? I'm not sure what that is. Like protein, like supplements? Be a little more specific. I'm not sure what that is. Steel products. I recently read Body by Science. Is there anything in that book do you think is inaccurate or wrong? No. The only thing is that people read that book and came out with the belief that 5 exercises once a week is best for optimal body composition. That is not what the book says. What the book says, you need to reread the chapter. It says it in the very beginning of the chapter titled The Big Five, that the Big Five is a starting point from which you add exercises and adjust volume and frequency. 5 exercises, 1 set, once a week is not going to give you your optimal physique. I can guarantee it. Unless I was training you, or Doug was training you, or Drew Bay was training you, or what else is out there? Whoever else. But you know, most of these, you know, the Body by Science group is like a 52-year-old woman going into the gym using life fitness equipment, doing 5 exercises to failure once a week, thinking she's going to get her optimal physique. Hell no. That's the only thing about Body by Science is people misinterpreted. Steel supplements fit. Do steel supplements fit in the same category as all proteins? I mean, they're all pretty much the same. They all kind of have to be the same because if they're really shitty, they're going to lose business. So here's the thing. Most of these supplements, yes, they look good. They look fine. Most of these supplements, the companies themselves don't make the protein. A lot of times they outsource the protein powder and then they just create their own label and their own packaging. So a lot of these proteins are coming from the same places, just with different packaging and labels. So they're pretty much all the same. Eric E., do most bodybuilders know how to fight in your experience? I don't know if they train in fighting. I don't know. I've never fought a bodybuilder. I would guess most of them don't. I mean, yeah. Would you still recommend your course on HIT Uni? Well, yeah, I recommend my course to literally everybody who exercises so they get the foundation and understand what they're doing in the gym. Yes, I do recommend you take that. Take that course. Or you can book me for a private coaching call. The email is at the bottom. And we can go over everything, and I'll write you a diet guide and a workout plan. Have you ever trained a martial art? Would you recommend any? I dabbled in jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, but very little. And the reason I didn't, I think martial arts are great. I think every man should do them. I probably should be doing one right now. But the reason I only dabbled was I was running 2 businesses, and I was wiped out. Probably could have been more disciplined, but I figured adding in a martial art 3 days a week would have pushed me over the edge and sacrificed the success of my business. So I put it on the back burner. Is muscle memory a real thing? Not by that name. So what muscle memory actually is motor learning. Or unless you're referring to your muscles growing back quickly after a layoff, this tends to be the case. Trying to think of why. It's probably, I don't know, but there tends to be a relationship between layoffs and getting your gains back really quickly. I'd have to look into exactly physiologically why that is. So off the top of my head, I couldn't really figure out why. Like, your muscles will atrophy. It's probably got something to do with the sensitivity of the satellite cells, or I don't know. But yeah, it is. If you take a layoff and then you hit the gym, you almost everybody tends to gain it back quickly. Physiologically, I'm not sure exactly why that is, but it tends to be a phenomenon. Branched chain amino acids or protein or both? No branched chain amino acids if you're consuming protein. Protein consists of branched chain amino acids. So adding branched chain amino acids on top of the branched chain amino acids in protein is you're just making expensive urine at that point, because you're just going to pee it out all the extra BCAAs. I was actually going to do a video on this today. I have to read through the research a little bit, but Brad Schoenfeld studied the effectiveness of BCAAs and found that they are absolutely useless if you're eating adequate protein. And you should be eating adequate protein anyway. So BCAAs are useless. Most of the people who conducted the research for BCAAs did it to try to sell BCAAs. No problem, Ronnie. Any other questions? Just go ahead and post them. So you got to keep in mind, like, a lot of these supplements that people come up with and the research behind the supplements are done by the companies themselves. There's a guy down here in Tampa, Jacob Wilson. I don't know if he's there anymore, but at the University of Tampa, exercise scientist, he's a quack, but he did a lot of the research for the companies in his lab to make the supplements look effective and then sell them. And I'm sure he got heck of a lot of kickbacks. So the answer to your question is there's literally no reason for you to drink BCAAs. You'd probably be better off lighting your money on fire and cooking a marshmallow over it, honestly. Be more useful. What do I think of people that do 3 to 4 reps? I don't know. I think they're wrong. They're wrong. That's not. Well, here's the thing. If you did 3 to 4 reps and you raise the weight 10 seconds each direction, that would be, 60 to 80 seconds of time under load. That would be effective in terms of metabolic and mechanical damage to stimulate muscle growth. The people who do 3 to 4 reps with lots of sets, like bench press or squat, they were just doing it wrong. That's it. I mean, will it work? Probably. But it'll work just about as much as cleaning your floor with a toothbrush will work. Sure, it'll work. It's just a really shitty way of doing it. Workout plan. Go ahead and email me at this email on the ticker below, and I can help you out with that. We'll go over your history and all that. I don't know what this means. Why a lot of people know and practice heavy duty or HIIT training systems around the world. I think maybe you're asking why they don't. Is the doping the problem? Are you talking about steroids? So a lot of people don't do high intensity training is because they're unaware of it. So think about it. The people with impressive physiques often have genetics which make them very sensitive to resistance training. So they respond with almost anything. So why would they be looking for better ways to do something that they're already responding very good at? A lot of people stumble across high-intensity training principles because they haven't had good results and they don't respond well. So they've tried all different approaches and they finally stumble across high-intensity training principles and find that they work the best for them because they're based on physiology. But bodybuilders with great genetics are never going to need to do this because they could literally just pick up heavy rocks and their body's going to respond because their genetics are so good. So, like, if you could hit a hole in one every time on a golf course, would you seek out a golf coach? No. That's basically what it is. Jade, you know why it is that 3 sets, 10 reps got so popular? Yes, I do. It was DeLorean and Watson rehabilitation protocol back in the 1940s. DeLorean and Watson, something like that. DeLorean and Watson exercise. I gotta find it. What the hell is it? Watson exercise. Hold on one second. I'm going to try to find it. Can't find it. I'm going to post this on my Patreon where 3x10 came from. So back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, these two physiologists were developing programs to rehab soldiers that were wounded in World War II. One of the names was Watson. The other one started with a D. I can't remember what his name was. So the 3x10 came from their rehabilitative approach. So the first 2 sets of the exercise were warm-ups because they knew they were working with injured soldiers. So they would do the first set of 10 as a warm-up, add a little bit of resistance. The second set as another warm-up, and then the third set was done to failure. The third was the working set. And the only reason they had 2 sets before the third was because they were working with wounded soldiers and they wanted to warm them up properly and get them into it and ease them into it. The first 2 sets were nothing sets. The third set was done to failure. And this is why 3 sets of 10 got so popular. Because I think shortly after that, they found such benefit with resistance training that's when it started to spread and people started to use it. And they were pretty much the only people who had resistance training research at the time, so they just did what they did. And basically what they did was they interpreted 3 sets of 10 as, all 3 sets are working sets. They're not. Based on the research they conducted, the first 2 sets were just warm-ups. The 3rd set was the working set to failure. I have this in a book somewhere. I'm just going to find the book. And I'm going to post it on my Patreon. So if you're not in my Patreon and you want to read where this came from, go ahead and join it. All right. I'm going to be on for 3 more minutes, guys, so ask your questions. If I didn't get proper rest the previous nights, for example, 3 hours rest, does it make sense to go to the gym following a day? Definitely take a day to rest and sleep. You're not going, very likely, not going to be able to generate the intensity needed for a good workout. Also, your hormones are going to be a little messed up for 3 hours of sleep. I would get a good night's rest today and then work out when you're feeling rested. There will be days where I plan to go do my workout, and if I'm not feeling rested, I just skip it. Because, being rested and recovered, if you're going into a workout with 3 hours of sleep and you're under-recovered and tired, you're starting in a really deep hole. And your likelihood of stimulating from that workout is pretty low. It'd probably be a waste of your time. Definitely sleep. We might do a workout with Elliot Holmes at some point. How'd that go? I haven't done one yet, but I'm going to be seeing him next month and probably plan that and see what he's doing. But I also don't want to rip my arm. Were you always interested in physiology or just when you grew older? It was more when I grew older. Some people kind of, they're born with the ability to understand and comprehend things easy. Some people can sit on a piano or pick up a guitar and just play it. Some people can understand how cars work. It just comes to them easily. This is how I am with exercise and physiology. It's just extremely easy for me to understand it for one reason or another. So I discovered this when I was, improving my own physique, that when it comes to exercise and physiology, I just remember everything. I don't know why. I can't play a guitar. I can't play a piano. I am pretty good with cars though. But I just understand exercise and I understand the body. It's just super friggin' easy for me. I don't know. And then my interest just grew from there. Literally say, if you train to failure, eat right, sleep enough, that's all you can do, and your genetics will decide how much muscle you build. Yes. That's it. That's all you can do. If your muscles don't grow as much as you want them to, nothing you can do about it. Just like the individual with pale skin who wants to be as tan as somebody from Brazil, they can use any tanning bed available. They can use any tanning frequency, any tanning volume, any tanning oil. It wouldn't matter. They still will never get as dark as a Brazilian. Yes. You need to accept that. If you're not big, giant, muscular, it may just not be in the cards for you. Why is it that we stretch after waking up or sitting for long periods of time? Is it merely neurological? It's mostly to create tension in the muscle, to get blood in there, so that to prepare them for movement, basically. If they've been sitting for a long time, you're in like a really rested state. Stretching is merely just creating tension in your muscle. So by creating tension, the muscle, the neurological system, the nervous system sends a signal to the muscle to contract because you're creating tension in it. It's going to send blood, oxygen, nutrients to the muscle to prepare it for movement. That's why we stretch when we wake up. All right, so it's about an hour, so that's it for me today, guys. Again, if I'm going to post the Watson 3 sets of 10 history on patreon.com/JVincent, along with take any of your questions through there. and help you with your diet and training. So if you haven't already joined, go ahead and join. The link is right there. If you want private one-on-one coaching from me and look at all the aspects of your training and come up with an approach, email me at the email address below. Go ahead and write that down. And then I will be here in a couple days. So thanks for watching. See you soon.